I'm going to begin recording. So,
Showed up on my end, and Lawrence, Tori, let me know when you're ready to begin. No rush.
Ready?
on your mark.
Okay, very good. Welcome to the July 14th, 2021 BAR Large Virtual Meeting. My name is John Robinson. The other board members present this afternoon are Jay White, who for the public's benefit and for our record will be recused from agenda item number 1 this evening, Leon Scott, James Metters, Carol Wheeler as our alternate. City staff present this afternoon are Tori Parrish, Lawrence Courtney, and Frankie Pinto. The order of the meeting will be as follows. There will be an introduction and overview of the project by city staff to the board and for the public. There will then follow an application presentation, a 10-minute time period or extended as determined by the chair, with any questions of the applicant by the board or staff. Any and all presenters should clearly state their name for the record. Persons affiliated with the project, be they owners, developers, designers, consultants, or other affiliated parties, should speak during this portion rather than in the later public comment portion. The applicant's presentation is followed by public comment. This is a 10-minute period or an extended time as allowed by the chair. During this time, the applicant does not respond to comments made during public comment. Any members of the public called upon will also be required to state their name for the record. There will then follow city staff comments and recommendations, if there are any. This is followed by the applicant's response or clarification to either the public comment and or the city and staff comments and recommendations. There will be a 5-minute cap on this period. The applicant, if having made any response, will then take their seat and speak only if called upon by the board or staff to clarify or correct. This is then followed by potential board discussion and vote. The applicant and presentation and the public comment period is now closed. The applicant may clarify any inaccurate information when recognized by the chair. They may do so by raising their hand and waiting to be called upon. But otherwise, they may only speak if asked a question by a board member. Other agenda notes for this evening are that agenda item 3 has been withdrawn by staff. This is a request to the public and our applicants or any affiliated parties, as well as the board, to please turn off all cell phones or silence such devices. Please limit, this is mainly directed at the public, but also to our applicants. Please limit your comments to architecture only. Comments related to zoning, parking, traffic, lot coverage, or livability concerns are not the purview of this board, cannot be voiced here or considered in the record. We'll now read some additional contextual information for the benefit of our applicants and the public. Lawrence, at this moment, or Tori, I am seeing Lawrence's screen, but I do not see the PowerPoint or slides for me to do the rest of the reading.
Okay. Are you seeing the screen that has the word protocol?
No.
I cannot see the protocol. I think all of us, gathering from what Mr. Metter said a minute ago, are seeing your email inbox on your desktop.
Okay.
And we can take, we're in no rush. We can take a pause to get this technical issue sorted out.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
There we go. Perfect. All right.
Sorry about that, guys.
We can all, or at least I can see it. Can all my fellow board members now see the read-in?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Good. I'll commence, or I'll keep carrying on. The protocol for this evening. Staff will control the PowerPoint presentation that includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Applicants simply need to ask the staff to advance to the next slide during their presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name whenever speaking. Video and microphone has been disabled for all attendees. Attendees, not board members or staff, will only be given the capabilities to speak when they're called on during the public comment period. The chat and Q&A functions associated with our virtual forum have been disabled for everyone. Regarding public comment, the applicants, meaning all team members and the public, have been required to register in advance, indicate the project they wish to comment on, and submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Just as in an in-person meeting, all applications heard today are part of a public meeting format. If you have registered and will speak during the public comment portion of the meeting, you will need to state your name and address for the record. Those members of the public that have registered will be called upon in order by project. Staff will call on the registered members of the public to speak for each project. If you have not registered prior to tonight to speak and be a member of the public, you will not be called upon. Further protocol for the board. Board members will be polled by the chairperson for comments and for their vote on a motion. Each member, when voting, should respond yay in favor or nay not in favor of the particular motion. The chair shall reread the motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chair if he has not reread the motion accurately. If a board member needs to recuse, he or she will be temporarily removed from the meeting and placed back in the meeting at the start of the next agenda item. If the board needs to go into executive session, they will call into a separate conference line, and all video and audio on Zoom will temporarily be turned off until we are ready to return to the regular meeting. Results and staff comments will be posted on the city website, which is www.charleston-sc.gov/BAR. These proceedings are being recorded and broadcasted to the City of Charleston's YouTube channel. Mrs. Parrish, what do we have for agenda item number 1 this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Agenda item number 1 is 99 South Market Street. The request is for final approval of revisions to the courtyard with new awnings, ramp, walkways, planter, wall extensions, and renovated outdoor bar structure. The courtyard is not rated. It's in the French Quarter. Just a couple of weeks ago, you remember the demolition of the courtyard features that we approved, and this is in the whole old and historic district. And we've got a context aerial slide showing you it's on the south of the market. It's between, I don't think that's another Broken Egg Cafe now, but it's in that first block of the market there. And we have some existing site photos prior to the demolition. This one's looking east on Market. And we'll have the applicant present now.
Very good. Who do we have here for the applicant this evening?
I'm John Crouch, the architect.
Yes, sir, Mr. Crouch, you have the floor.
All right. Do you need my address or anything?
You can just put it in there for the record, but we know who you
Okay.
are.
I'm at 666 Harbor Creek Place in Charleston, 29412.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So as I said 2 weeks ago, I bring you the real thing this week. Honestly, it's a pretty simple request. You all saw the state of the Bubba Gump thing, and it was even worse than the photos depicted. And our aim here is to create a unified courtyard using modern materials to create a sort of almost like a European square where you can sit outside and have a little food and a drink with canopies over the entrance. We're maintaining the trees. They put the tree protection in. We spoke about that last time. And relocate the handicap ramp to make a larger courtyard. So the handicap ramp, if you look at, please go to sheet, I'm on my own computer here, A 1.3. That's a close-up of the courtyard. And you'll see that the ramp is on the completely adjacent to what's the Five and Dime, the retail space on Market Street, to create a bigger courtyard. And we've, as you allowed us now, demolished the site features that were there for the Bubba Gump, and actually some of them predated that and went back to the mill. So They were quite old and never made all that well to begin with. So there was that sort of overhead canopy structure in front of the little shack out front. That's been removed and is not proposed to be replaced. The what will be an outdoor bar has 3 sets of awnings, one over each of the openings on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. There was an existing screen wall that shielded the back left-hand service courtyard, and we're rebuilding that to maintain that as a screen so the public can't see in there or get in there, frankly. It's a mess back there, honestly. Pipes, wires, it's a perfect example of several layers of years and years of development that have occurred in this little place. And you know how layers get, they get all messy. There is an existing masonry screen wall that screens the right-hand service courtyard where the exit stair from the 2nd and 3rd floor terminate. There's also access to the back of another broken egg and the retail spaces along Market Street on the Citizens Bank plat. Maintaining the trees, let's see, lighting, paving. The paving is a Versailles or French pattern limestone with black sand between it. It's a polymeric sand. The idea of the polymeric is it lets water go through it, and we'll have a drainage plane below that, so it won't get clogged up. We're extending, there's a little wall out front to divide it from the sidewalk, and we're extending that to the right and to the left to the extent of our paving, if you'll see it. And then we're putting sweetgrass on top of it. And lighting's by moonlighting in the trees, which will filter through down to the tables in the courtyard. There are some building mounted elements, and if you go to the page 2, go to page materials and colors on the supplemental stuff information, please. There is a depiction of the paving, sweetgrass, the vertical surfaces, the little retaining wall that's going to border the ramp, and the dividing wall will be covered in tabby stucco. And you can see, yeah, there you go. That's so in the upper left on that sheet is our paving. Next to it, the sweetgrass. That'll be a nice stripe of green and color depending on the season. And then to the right of that is a depiction of the canopy. It's a double thickness polycarbonate, translucent, not clear. I wanted to have diffuse lighting coming through it. The canopy slopes back towards the building to a steel channel that'll act as the gutter. And then there are downspouts on either side of each canopy. If you go to sheet, where am I at? Let's see, sheet. Bear with me a second here. There you go. If you go to sheet A 4.0 on the building plans, you'll see a detail of the canopy, a section, and a section through the ramp. There you go. You'll see that the canopy slopes back towards the building, and then there's the gutter, channel gutter that picks it up on that upper right detail. That upper right detail also indicates the railing, which is just simple round pipe, and it's to be painted that dark blue color. back to materials and colors, if you don't mind, on the supplemental information. There you go, thank you. On the lower right is the Moscow Midnight color that we propose to paint the base of the building and the base of the little outdoor building. And then the body of the building is this rhinestone. It comes rather gray in this depiction, but it's actually a very crisp white with a little bit of gray, and it's a nice, nice color. Oh, and one thing about that, the landlord has agreed to paint not only our lease area building, but the Market Street face of the brick gable building that the Five and Dime occupies, so that this assembly of buildings will be unified and the Five and Dime facade will be cleaned up. And that is that limestone color, the light whitish gray. That is not on the drawings, but I'd just like you to know that and hopefully approve it. Let's see, plants, lights. Oh, lighting in the courtyard. Lighting in the courtyard, we have some bollard lamps scattered around. And if you look at, and I know I'm getting close on my time, so I'm hurrying through this for you. That's food service. Yes, if you go to A 7.2 on the permit drawings, please. You'll see along the ramp, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these post lamps. That's the E10 post light in the middle on the supplemental stuff. This is one of those times when it's tough to do it virtually because you have to now go back to the supplemental stuff. And you can't refer to two things at once. Sorry. So they're very well screened lights. I didn't want people to walk down the street and have bright lights shining in their eyes. This is a diffuse light that will light up our walkways. The lamps, pardon me? The lamps in the courtyard are the small bollards that are again hidden source lights that shine down. And there are a couple of in-ground lights just to create a little a more uniform illumination. Yes, thank you. And there are lights on either side of the main entrances to the doors, and a couple of, there are little sconces, but they're round sconces that shine down. Again, all the light source is shielded. I just don't like to have points of light shining in my eyes, and I try not to do that in my projects. Really, that's about it. If you want to refer to the elevations, I think maybe that's that would be sheet 2.0. And you can see that main elevation of the entry. You see its canopy over the new doors, and those doors are the same kind of doors that go into the retail space on the side. They're wood full view glass doors. Nothing controversial there, and they unify this courtyard. Again, getting away from the sort of standard bronze aluminum doors that are there now. So if you look at this, the base of the thing from the ground to that first hip in the brick is the dark blue color. And then the remainder of it is the limestone, the white. And then if you go to A 2.1, you'll see the other view of the courtyard, and that is all the limestone color, and we're going to carry that around on the front of the gable building, not up to Broken Egg, but it'll stop at the Broken Egg building. Or Mistral, if you remember Mistral. I love that place. So really, if you have questions or clarifications, I'd be happy to make them. And I'm open to discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Crouch.
You're welcome.
Do we have any public comment on this agenda item?
We do not.
All right, then we'll move on to city staff comments and recommendations.
Okay, some staff observations. Number 1, related work received after the fact approval for demolition at the June 23rd BARL meeting. Number 2, previously shown artificial turf has now been replaced with appropriate specialty pavers and other surfaces. And 3, details on the new planter atop the extended wall at the sidewalk and lighting have been provided to a cursory degree. Staff requests additional clarity on the proposed lighting. And then staff comments. Number 1, construction has already begun, although a stop work order should be in place. Applicant is advised that work is not to begin until approved by the board. Number 2, existing trees are to be protected during construction. 3, provide manufacturer's cut sheets or information on all proposed exterior lighting and include photometric data for each fixture type, as well as the whole courtyard area. And 4, provide clarity on the proposed color scheme. The south courtyard wall is connected to or is part of 182 Meeting Street, the First Citizens Bank. The east courtyard wall is part of the building that fronts South Market Street. That's the 5 and Dime General Store on Google Earth, and looks to be painted like the proposed body color rhinestone. Confirm the extent of the proposed painting. Staff recommendation, final approval of courtyard renovations with board and staff comments, with final review by staff of exterior lighting and paint.
Thank you, Mrs. Parrish. Any response from Mr. Crouch?
Well, I think I clarified the color. It didn't make any sense to paint one wall and not the whole thing. Plus, if you go down Market Street and take a good look at that building, we got a crop of air ferns growing in some of the brickwork, so that needs to be attended to. So that's all going to be taken care of. I do have cut sheets with photometrics on all the lighting, and I'll put that together and get it in Lawrence's hands. The trees have been protected and will continue to be protected. And let's see, the color, I'd be happy to work with staff to clarify the colors, but it's pretty simple. It's not, I'm not making it complicated. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to board discussion and vote. I will direct this either to Mr. Crouch and or city staff. Is work continuing to be done on the site that has not been approved presently? I know this was the problem last time we had a meeting on this project, but is work continuing to be done on this site that has not been approved by the BAR?
No. The interior has a permit, and we're in the midst of upfitting the interior, but all work on the outside has stopped. If there's any work being done on the outside, it's people cutting tile or trim for the interior. So it might appear that there's work going on the exterior, but it's just using the courtyard as a sort of a lay down space.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Further board discussion. What do my fellow board members have to say about this project?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
A question for what is included in this application. It was mentioned that the painting of the 5 and Dime, I guess that would be the north elevation. Is that included in this application? I didn't think that it was, and I want to be clear if something is happening on that elevation. I don't know that it's included with this application.
No, to be clear, no, it wasn't. After the application had been made, I made the suggestion, can we call it? I brought the landlord down there and pointed out the shape of the building facade on South Market. And they agreed that they would paint that gable end portion on South Market to match our color scheme. And no, it wasn't included, but if that could be, typically when I've gone to repaint things and it's a simple request, that can be a staff approval. So if there's a way to work it to have that occur, that would be fine. I just wanted you to know that we're trying to unify that building and clean the whole thing up.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know how to deal with that. So some guidance there. I didn't go by and look at that side of the building, so I don't have an opinion on that.
Okay.
This is Kara Wheeler. I don't have any other comments in addition to staff comments, but I'm in agreement. I just have a comment regarding the presentation of the work. There's a lot of information in that submittal, and for BAR purposes, we only look at the exterior of the building, so we don't need the information of an interior exhaust hood or things like that. And there's specific submittal requirements for renovations with before and after drawings, which would be really helpful in this situation because it makes it easier to review and it will be much quicker to review. So just a note for the future. And then I saw some signage in this submittal, and of course signage needs to be a separate submittal. And there's a BAR policy statement along Market Street that illuminated signage is not allowed. So if there is a new signage package coming in front of the board or staff, that should be considered.
Okay. And I'll direct any specific response to that to city staff, perhaps Tori, regarding the signage issue.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. The applicant has confirmed that they will be doing a completely separate signage package. If he wants to confirm that.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the case.
Sounds good.
That's the case, and I agree. I'm not attempting to have internally illuminated signs. This
There's
isn't
even the policies. I know this is not about signage, but I saw the detail of the nicely developed canopy, and even exterior illumination is per BAR policy statement not allowed, as far as I know.
So I can't illuminate these little markers over my over the bar, for instance.
I think that can be discussed at a later point with staff, but just as a note for the
Okay.
future, there's a policy statement on the website that clearly outlines that.
Right. We would like to discuss not just the the verbiage of the signage and the size, but also any proposed illumination for the signage would be part of that signage package. So that needs to just be considered when you submit that signage package.
Be happy to do it.
Thank you. Further board comment?
Do you mind if I interject something?
Not at all, Ms. Parrish.
Okay. This is sort of back to Mr. Metter's comment. In formulating staff comments, it did become clear to us that what we were looking at sort of grew because of the paint and, my trying to understand. And I did, what was explained tonight was more than what we had in our hands yesterday, was trying to understand the extent of the paint and the extent of how far it went because all those buildings are connected. And so I kind of am wondering if the paint, we do have the recommendation that the paint be worked with staff if we want to go back over that and discuss that or leave it at staff level or review it separately. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tori. And just for all our board votes count equally, I'm fine with that being a staff level decision, but I defer to my older, wiser, more experienced colleagues on opinions on that specific issue.
Mr. Chairman, on this, not that I am older, but not wiser for sure. So, Tori, I want you to know that from my position, I agree with the chairman, but I also want you to know if you feel like you don't get the information that you need, I am for you kicking this down the road, so to speak, because I think that some of this information is not as clear as it needs to be on these plans and in this presentation in terms of colors and anything else that you might know about that we don't know about. So I don't want you to get stuck with something that you're not comfortable with, but if you're comfortable with it, then I am.
Ditto, same here.
Well, I would suggest, Lawrence and I don't want to overburden the board or bring too many things to you, but in the case of a paint application that is on a prominent building on a prominent street, and if we're not 100% clear about where the extent of the paint goes and how it looks with the, adjacent building materials and that sort of thing, I would suggest that maybe we propose a paint sample mock-up and maybe just some sort of temporary delineation about where it is, with some blue painter's tape or caution tape, and maybe we could all swing by and have a look. But again, we don't want to overburden you guys because we do have the authority to, per your guidance, to look at paint reviews on a staff level. So it's completely up to you guys, and I'm 100% comfortable with more eyes on it or not.
If I may, we're perfectly happy to do sample panels. In fact, we were planning on doing that anyway, just to verify these color choices. So that's perfectly fine for if that is an avenue that we can all be comfortable in.
I would be happy if if that stays on staff level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Further board comment on this agenda item? I'll just add that Ms. Parrish is given enough of an indication that she would like to see mock-up panels sample the color because of the prominence of this facade and where it's located in the city, which I think is to say that while she would defer it to, she appreciates our trust in it being deferred to staff, that she thinks it may come into the board's need to review just because of where it's located, but I'll just give that as food for thought. Any further board comments? And if not, I'll be glad to entertain a motion.
This is Kara Wheeler. I'll make a motion for final approval of courtyard renovations with board and staff comments with final review by staff of exterior lighting, paint, and paint mock-up on site.
Ms. Wheeler, your motion, as I understand it, is a motion for final approval of courtyard renovations with board and staff comments with final review by staff of exterior lighting and paint and a paint mock-up. Is that correct? A paint sample?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. You have heard the motion, and Ms. Wheeler has confirmed that I've restated it correctly. Is there a second to this motion?
This is Leon. I'll second it.
There's been a second by Mr. Scott. I will therefore proceed to call the roll. Mr. Metters, how do you vote on this motion?
Yay in favor.
That doesn't work.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Scott?
Yay in favor.
And myself, yay in favor. And so therefore the motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you to Mr. Crouch. We will work with you on the paint.
I'll be happy to. And the lighting.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mrs. Parrish, when you're ready, agenda item number 2.
All righty, we need to get Mr. White back in the meeting.
And thank you, Ms. Wheeler.
There we go. All right, agenda item number 2 is 284 Meeting Street. The request is final approval for new construction of a commercial and residential building. The project is in the Ansonboro neighborhood in the Old and Historic District. And there we go. The aerial context, if you will notice that we have George Street running southwest to northeast in this photograph, and the project site is outlined in red. And then we've got some existing site photos looking directly at the project. And just from the north side of the project. And from the south side of the project. And looking south on Meeting Street. And looking north on Meeting Street. And then another aerial, giving you more of a pictometry look, I guess. I'm going to run through the previous staff comments from the June 26, 2019 meeting, because we will be referencing these. Number one, drawing sheets should be numbered and a drawing list provided on all submittals. Also, notes of materials and other information should be called out on the proposed elevations. Number two, a masonry wall on the south property line is now proposed versus the previous proposal for a wood fence. The storefront design and materials have improved. Sapele versus aluminum, but GFRC is not preferred at the lower levels. Number three, the retail entry has been recessed and special repaving provided from the entry to the property line. Number four, the mass in the north-south direction has been reduced 3 to 4 feet. The board had requested a much greater reduction in the mass of the rear to align with the front building. Staff feels that the addition is acceptable as now proposed. It is far enough back, 140 feet, and now includes windows on the south elevation by being set off of the property line. The normal pattern of rear additions being held back to align with the front building is more applicable to additions on existing historic structures. Number five, planted areas along the driveway are very narrow. Study expanding them. Number six, gates still need to be added to the south side garages and be automatically operable. 7, provide a fence and gate at the north between the buildings. The gate bottoms should be lower to the ground typically. 8, spandrel glass shown on the rear of units 1, 3, and 4 would not normally be permitted, but it is on the rear and minimally visible. 9, driveway gates should be wrought iron and mounted to the masonry piers rather than to metal posts. 10, there's a conflict on the call out for garage doors indicating wood in some cases and metal in others. They should be wood. Number 11, metals for railings and fencing are alternately called out as iron or painted metal. All should be wrought iron. 12, at some units, opaque glass is used at kitchens. The color and opacity of these needs to be studied and carefully to minimize visual impact. 13, scuppers and downspouts may be best as painted metal to match other metal elements on the building. And 14, what is noted as limestone looks more like cast stone on the sample board. Confirm that it is in fact limestone. The board motion only included staff comments. And we will have the applicant present.
Very good. I believe Mr. Schmidt is here to present to us this evening. With us, Mr.
Right.
Schmidt?
I am.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm Joe Schmidt, Evans and Schmidt Architects. We are bringing this back after what looks like a considerable long time. This is sort of a byproduct of COVID, where design-wise things got set aside as well as construction-wise. So there was no interest for the developer to be building this project, and it has sort of fallen silent. And it's we're recognizing that it's time to bring it back. And we apologize for short memories for a long span of time since whoever heard this application before. It's almost too long ago. We have made the corrections to the drawings that have been discussed. The first being, you might go to slide number 46. I apologize. I just let you plug the numbers in, but I guess not.
That's okay.
This location, Tori, I'm a little thrown off because what I got back from staff didn't have a 13 and a 14 in it, so I don't know what to say to the limestone. I don't even know what we presented it for. But this was GFRC before, and we went to cast stone here. So limestone would be a bit much on that cornice work up there, but it's maybe something we have to take up separately because I'm not sure where limestone was called out. Right now, things are being shown as either stucco or cast stone. I don't recall us ever presenting limestone on the project, so a little bit confused on that 14th comment. But at any rate, what you're looking at is cast stone for the surround on the ground floor on the front of the building. There is a comment that the staff has about, hang on a second. Comment number 7 about the stucco on the ground floor being rusticated. This is an error. We fully intended for that pilast you see in detail 1 to be rusticated. Our definition of rusticated would be a reglet or a beveled reglet, and instead it's just a stacked stone look. So I apologize. I actually talked to Lawrence about this yesterday and convinced myself to convince him that we had exactly what he wanted in that case. So this is a good drawing to discuss it there. We fully intend for those joints to be regleted or beveled, depending on how staff wants to deal with it, or the board wants to deal with it at this point. The next item that came up to be discussed was number 5. It's slide 27. And while he's getting there, I can explain what it is. There was concern that the planting bed was not wide enough, and you'll have to believe me that every developer owner would rather have more planting bed and less hardscape pavers. The reason it is the way it is due to the fire department insisting on the width of the driveway being what we're showing. What we have been able to do, and as you see, what we did is we sort of narrowed the driveway down and created a sidewalk so they can drive on that too. All that we were able to give to this is that little planting bed where the hand is right now. Used to be 6 inches, and we were able to push it up to 14. But what's happening is if we're not careful, we're getting into the situation where we're pushing everything over lopsided. We just can't, they want the width that we're showing them, and we can't do anything less than that. So we believe 14 inches will obviously allow things to be grown in it. The next item that came up was number 18, which we talked about a little bit. I'm sorry, not number 7, which is slide 18. Shows best what we're trying to say. So what you see on the storefront will be beveled or regulated. That's our desire, correct there. What is shown on the south side of the building, no, don't come back to the south. That's the south side. We are not proposing to reglet or bevel that, but the notation implies that that's supposed to be rusticated too. The appropriate thing to do for Ansonboro, for basically all of Charleston in this kind of situation, to not have a blank stucco wall, is to pencil, what we call pencil scoring, which is implies pushing a pencil into wet stucco. It's a very subtle technique. The goal is that that pattern will match the height of the reglets on the front of the building, but it will not be some kind of what the city was describing as rusticated stone. So just wanted to clarify, we have not exactly given them what they asked for in that case. Number 8, item number 8 is about replicating the garden wall on the north side as being inappropriate. If you would go to slide 11, would show it best. What you see in the prior proposal is what we proposed before, and what we have put into the current proposal but don't agree with, slide 11, is the current proposal up top, where it is when he gets there, where it's just a solid brick veneer applied to our building to give some relief to all that stucco along there. What I would like to do is, I'm bringing it up for discussion. We could not submit a changed drawing, but once this got advertised in the neighbors next door, directly to the north where the hand is right now, which is 286, there's 9 condos on that project at 286. They have come to me and asked me to, if there's any way to go back to the prior proposal or some facsimile. And I do not disagree with them for 2 reasons. What needs to be remembered is that what you're looking at in the back half of that, 124 feet back from the street, you see a small jog in that garden wall. Go mid-screen. Come back right there. That is the beginning of what's left of the original 1801 wall going backwards. It's all old Charleston brick. It's stucco in the arches. It's the way it's been since it was built. And then it stops right there. It stopped because they tore down the front portion when the current building was put there. I understand that. They obviously agreed to it. What we are proposing was just to put 4 inches of brick on the face of our wall from that point forward, not old brick, but new brick. So it's not going to match in color, texture, size, but it's brick because it's a better relief for them that they've asked for, but it's something we worked with them on in the previous application, which went by the wayside based on staff's comments and our corrections into the current proposal. If we did that, what we would be applying 4 inches of brick to our wall, and where we're not applying the brick, you would get the stucco arch look because it's a stucco faced building. I know everybody in Charleston is much smarter than our tourists, but I can't imagine anybody being confused that we are historically confusing them with this being an 1801 arched wall when it's what we end up with. They came to me with the passion 2 days ago and again yesterday, and I think it's probably going to come up in public comment if they're so willing, but I'm suggesting that we have more dialogue about this because there's always so much discussion about doing details that are historical in nature and therefore it confuses history. You're not supposed to use a historical detail in a new building. Well, an arch is far beyond anything Charleston historical. It's just it's a pleasant device of transitioning a length of space that is excessive. And as you can see, what we've done is we didn't go the whole length. Now, maybe we've made a mistake in doing the exact same width pattern. And I'm going to suggest as some kind of discussion by board, I hope, that will help staff ease their conscience and mine and anybody else's, that possibly those arches, which are like 6'2" in width, could easily become 9 foot or something on that order. It'd be half again longer. But the neighbors specifically said, we really liked the prior proposal. We thought it was pleasant. It's a long, narrow driveway for us, and we want to speak out against it. So I said, well, not only that, I'll help you speak out against it just to explain the points. And again, the point being that we're offset from a real brick wall by that projects 14 inches beyond the face of our building. It's brick. Our brick would not be the handmade old Charleston brick. We wouldn't be able to We probably could find it, but even if it did do it in that, it would never match just by the history of laying brick and joint pointing and so forth. So, however, it could be even, I was gonna say it could be painted in that pattern, but I think their real point is they were looking for the calmness and the texture of brick rather than more stucco, because they're being confronted with a north wall that's very typical, but not something that they're used to. So I'll let that go to later discussion with the board. I hope it'll come up. I think we've followed everything else that's been asked of us. We did do cast window heads to match the sills on the front of the building. This would be on elevation slide 37 and 38. We do not and still do not agree with taking it any further back into the site. There's always a hierarchy of buildings, and we are maybe a new building, but we're in Ansonboro, and we'd like to follow as much of that hierarchy as we can. So you'll see, for instance, right there on 38, we have cast stone heads on that front portion, but not from their back. We have shutters on that front portion, but not from their back. We believe this is the better way to express this building. We are not trying to copy, but we are trying to complement, as we've said all along, 286 meeting, which is a very fine, properly proportioned Adams-esque building from 1801. I think it's best, since I'm hoping there is discussion on that one item about the north wall, that I will close and open it up to see where we can go with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. I know there's a lot of ground to cover, and you did. Mrs. Parrish, do we have any public comment on this matter? I believe we have one written if the commenter is not actually present.
We do have a member of the public that would like to speak, and he is here, or if he wants to, I can read his comment otherwise. Mr. Toffler, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. I appreciate the time to have a quick comment. So I'm the HOA president of 286 meetings. So we appreciate Joe bringing back the comments on the arches. We think, I mean, we're going to go from having light and having a nice historic area to having a 4-story building next to us. So the least we'd like to do is at least have something attractive to be able to look at as we go down the driveway. And if you look at the other side on the first floor, it already has that same arch. So it can match between our side and the right across on the other side where the wall is going to be. So our request is to have the initial proposal of having the arches and the brick columns as explained in the initial design, as well as we'd like to have the 4-inch overhang if possible on the 284 side and not the 286 side, so it doesn't affect our shrubbery or our trees. And the final request is we have the brick wall that's in the very back of our building that's from 1801. And we know that when they go through the process and going in and building this new building, and if there's any damage or if there's anything that's affected by this wall, just to make sure that it's fixed and corrected.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that conclude your remarks, Mr. Kessler?
It does. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you for choosing to appear. We will now move to city staff comments and recommendations. Ms. Parrish.
All right. Staff observation. This project was well received by the board and staff at preliminary review and has changed little since then. Staff comments. Number 1, applicant has apparently not addressed preliminary review staff comment number 5 regarding the widening of planting beds along the driveway. This was written before tonight. Number 2, the rustication of the base of the front portion as noted in preliminary review staff comment number 7 should include recessed bands between what reads as blocks of approximately 1.5 inches in height and a 1/2 inch deep. Staff will work with applicant to achieve an appropriate spacing and pattern in the stucco. Number 3, the cap at the wood fence should be sloped to drain and the fence composition should be similar to our typical double-sided 6-foot urban privacy fence. Number 4, staff has no problem with the Southern Lumber Elite pressure treated wood being used at the rear painted portions of the project. Additionally, staff has no issues with this product being used at a painted storefront due to the difficulty of tracking sustainability certifications through the harvesting, production, delivery, and replanting chains. A sustainable tropical hardwood is acceptable if its sourcing and delivery chain can be verified and documented. Number 5, shutters are called out to be stained cedar. Staff recommends a painted Southern Lumber Elite material as noted above, or a similar KDAP product instead. And number 6, cast stone window heads should be used at the front 4-story portion of the building, while stucco heads may be used at the rear lower portions. And the staff recommendation is final approval with board and staff comments with final review by staff of 4 permit drawings. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt, you now have the ability to respond to either public or city and staff comments if you choose.
I have no problem with city staff's comments. I would hope that the board might open up discussion for the benefit of the neighbors at 286 and reconsider or offer suggestions on how they would see that being done. They just running a 4-inch blank brick wall just isn't something that they were requesting. And as I might have said earlier, after all, remember, they're the ones who are going to enjoy or not enjoy what they see there. So
rarely do we have the applicant be such a strong advocate for the neighbor. But thank you for that. Further, and I'm sorry, did you have anything else to add to that, Mr. Schmidt?
No, just that I was the neighbor. I was the neighbor on that side. Our office was at 286 meeting on the ground floor, and I stared at that driveway wall for the first 20 years of my profession. So I sympathize with them and understood exactly where they're coming from.
We all agree it's a long driveway. Thank you for that, Mr. Schmidt. We will now move to board discussion and a potential vote on the material presented this evening. What do my fellow board members have to say about agenda item number 2?
I'll jump in first on this one and start with a question. Tori, the comment number 4, the staff recommendation, made reference to sustainability. Was that a project objective, or what is underlying that?
I knew you'd ask me something like that, and I'm going to lob that one over to Lawrence because I'll give you a little background info. Sometimes due to the workload, we divide up the projects and then familiarize ourselves with the others' comments and edit each other's. And so I'm going to let him take that one.
Okay. Well, simply put, our department is planning, preservation, and sustainability. And it did occur to us that sustainability should be something that we should be focusing on a little bit more than we were. And it became clear in investigating things that it is indeed very difficult to adequately ensure that things labeled as sustainable tropical hardwood are in fact sustainable, and quite often they have been shown not to be. So it's sort of a shift of ours back to something that's perhaps more locally sourced, more in fact sustainable.
Well, okay. Well, I think that probably points to a much larger discussion that would involve, our jurisdiction, and then also, what the client is actually asking to do. They may not have any concern whatsoever about about the sustainability or making sure that they get truly FSC certified lumber on the job site. So I don't know. I think I've always been a little bit nervous about elite treated, and we've actually pushed other applicants to not use it on prominent projects. And then my only other comments is I agree with staff comments and recommendation otherwise. And I'm perfectly fine going back to the previous iteration of the site wall, especially if it's at direct request of the most affected parties. Then I'm perfectly fine letting them go back to that. But that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White. Further board comments on this agenda item?
Mr. Chairman, this is
Yes.
James.
Yes, sir.
Could Lawrence, we go back to the current versus previous, showing the west elevation. And I guess there was one when I was reviewing it earlier called the north and west elevation. And
I need to pause just 1 minute. I don't know if everybody heard that, but the recording.
I did. We can pause. We need to pause for a second to resume.
I think that's
the board.
because we sent Frankie home. So I'm gonna start recording. Or Lawrence, do you mind? Can you start recording?
I believe that I can.
Okay, resume, please. Thank you.
Okay. I believe that we are now back recording.
is there another version of that, Lawrence? Or maybe I was just looking on it at the big screen of my office. And hey, Joe, I got a question for you.
The west.
North and west.
That I think is west, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the details above the windows in the prior proposal were on an angle at the headers, and it was changed to what we see in the current proposal. And it's difficult to see on this drawing. There's another drawing where you can see the expansion joints, and I'm going to call it expansion joints. First question is, I'm guessing that's what that is. And one of the reasons that you changed was so that an expansion joint would align, here it cuts through this arch, and on the other one, it kind of aligns with it. So these are expansion joints? Control joints, excuse me.
We will need control joints there. And what we do, and we do it very successfully on our projects, is we have them caulk. We do the metal control joint, the W-shaped form. We caulk it, and they put sand into the caulk joint. And then when it's all painted, it is about as invisible as it can get. For your question about why we went from a angled to a straight, you wouldn't do once we're going to a cast stone head versus a stucco head, the concept needs to change for the fact that it needs to have bearing, proper looking bearing for a stone head. It's not really a stone head. So we elected to go to the square type on that. There is actually we did shift the stucco line over because of that, and that helped also because it aligns the sill with the head. So if at some point it does show up, and there always is that risk because of the stucco, the caulking that you're using, that if the paint blisters at all, you could get a slight shine for wherever the sand didn't stick, but it goes away quite well. So those were the subtle construction reasons for doing what we did.
Well, and there's an I don't know what the drawing type is called, Joe, but there's another one that kind of shows these two elevations. Well, actually all the elevations, and some of my comments are, you show it accurately, and I appreciate it, but the control joints begin to almost define the appearance of the building, and you won't see them as you're describing as much if that's a successful application, as you actually see them in these drawings. Maybe not on this drawing, but when you look at that, the control joints on the back side of that building are really defining that side of the building. I don't know what you do about it other than the method that you just described. But I just wanted my fellow board members to be conscious of those things that you're going to see. And
if I can throw something in, because we're talking about the technical aspects of it, this is something that we're always up against because, the control joints are required by building code on stucco every 100 or 120 square feet. I can't remember what it is exactly. And that's a mandate. And if this may well be a CMU wall with the stucco on it. There is no reason to put it on there except the building official, who I used to argue with, who's no longer there, said, but the code doesn't give you that exception. So this is a battle that people who are not using them on masonry buildings are actually in defiance of the International Building Code. So since we lost that battle with him, we said we're going to perfect the technique to make it disappear as much as possible. And you're right, it's a lot of wall, but that scoring has to do with the largest scoring you see on there exactly meets the largest ability for this non-control joint stucco per the International Building Code.
Again, no, Joe, I'm not debating that with you. I want you to know I hear what you're saying. I just wanted to have this conversation about the type of construction which leads to, with disregard, I am disregarding the building code right now. You have to have these control joints in there. I mean, you have to. And I agree with Joe also, if this is a concrete block wall, we would not put those. And you may in fact be in opposition to the code. But I just want to make sure everyone understands you're standing on Lee Space Street. You look down this, and as good a job as this sanded caulk mix is put in these joints, that you see it, and that's what defines the ages of buildings for me. I like the changes to the doors, Joe, and the corners coming down. I thought those were good. The west side's tough. I know there was some conversation about painting of metal for maybe some scuppers and downspouts, and I guess that's a baked tone or a kind of our finish and not literally painted. The comment that Jay made, especially on the storefront, there are appropriate uses for the elite traded. There are some appropriate uses on that storefront. I don't think is one. I still think that ought to be a Sapili, and I'm not to a point here where I'm making the decision based on sustainability to make a switch from elite treated to elite treated because of sustainability and Lawrence. We can talk about that another time, but so I'm not in favor of the switching to the elite treated from a hardwood. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Meadows, of course. Thank you for that. Further board comment on agenda item number 2.
This is Carol Wheeler. I'm going to jump in. I wanted to say first that this is a really nice and clearly organized drawing set, which is very easy to review. So compliment on that. It's very nice to have the current proposal and prior proposal from several angles. So that really helps everybody. Regarding, I'll just touch on a couple of points. Regarding the brick wall, I agree that some relief will be better than just a flat brick wall. And changing I think that what was being proposed previously, the proportions look good, and going wider or changing the shape could help, but wouldn't probably look as good. So I would be fine with adding these reliefs to the new wall, and there would still be a change to the historic wall because you use a different brick. Regarding the, I actually had a questions regarding the control joints. It appears that the construction will be is that a precast facade, and then you're adding stucco to it in some areas.
We're looking at they're repricing this now. They're looking at 3 different possibilities. The 2 most prominent ones are that it will be the insulated concrete form method that we used on 31 Smith Street, which was just recently completed at Smith and Buffane, which incidentally had the same treatments for control joints, and the board might want to take a look at that and see if it's success or not. And that is a formed stucco panel with concrete poured into it, formed styrofoam panel with concrete poured into it, then stucco applied, or it'll be CMU going up. It will not be a wood frame system for this project.
Because I was wondering if you have the precast, if it will become precast. Usually the joints are wider, but if you go over it with stucco, I suppose you can achieve the goal that you had for your stucco control joints. And then regarding the, I also agree that if city staff pushes for a sustainable product, this needs to be a policy statement change, and needs to be, needs to or requires a discussion with the whole board. So I don't think we should agree to that. And I think the cedar that's called out, I think Western red cedar has been used successfully around town, stained. So I would be fine with that. And then I just had a question whether this project will require a mock-up panel, or whether that was determined that it's not necessary. A question to staff, probably.
Yep, we'll redirect that to staff on the necessity of a mock-up panel for any or all of this project.
And I will direct that to Lawrence.
And I will redirect that to Tori.
Oh, Lawrence, you know I haven't been around long enough to.
If you want the board to make that decision, we could obviously make that too.
I think that this is a call for the board. If the board wants to see a mock-up here, then that's what we usually do.
Mm-hmm. I would
Mr.
be
Chairman, this
interested to
seems
see
to have
the
enough
I would be interested to see the stained wood. I'm not quite sure what color that is, and a couple of more, a little bit more input on the materials, whether it's with a material board or whether it's with a mock-up. Stucco typically is, it's not an unusual material, so that I don't think it necessarily needs a mock-up, but some kind of material board would be good. But I'd be curious to see what other board members have to say.
Well, and you had the next comment, James. What did you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. I think that this is a prominent structure, and the structure that's adjacent to it, Joe's old office, is like it's an ultra fine building, and I think that this deserves a mock-up. And staff could work with Joe to determine which features they believe are critical for that markup. But included in that would be an example of the control joint. And I haven't had as much success with the Western red cedar as Caro has, meaning it depends on what Western red cedar you buy. So getting examples of the wood products in there and how they're integrating with the adjacent materials, I think it's important.
And I do recognize it places an additional burden on the applicant, but at the same time, for the same reasons that Joe raised about how this project had been stale and then coming back, I think that it would be beneficial to everyone to agree that we're all on the same page regarding what the applicant actually wants to build and complete. So I think that's good counsel. Any further comments from the board?
I have a motion sort of sketched out if y'all are ready for that.
Sure, Mr. White, what do you have?
All right, let's see, final approval with board comments and with staff comments, excluding number 4, with north wall as depicted in prior proposal, and submit mock-up panel for mock-up panel drawings for staff review.
Mr. White, would you mind, I was taking it down as quickly as I could. Would you mind reading that one more time for me?
Yeah, sure. Final approval with board comments and with staff comments, accepting number 4.
Yep.
With north wall as depicted in prior proposal, and submit mock-up panel drawings for staff review.
And Mr. Chairman, when you're ready, I would second that, but I have a question for Jay.
And let me just read it back real quickly, Mr. Metters, and then I will make sure that you get to add your comment directly to what Jay has just said. Mr. White, your motion, as I understand it, is for this board to vote for full approval with board and staff comments, excluding staff comment number 4, with the north wall on the prior proposal and requirement for the applicant to submit mock-up drawings for staff review. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And Mr. Metters, do you still second that?
I do second that. I wanted to ask Jay if he consider in his motion that I just want to ask staff to give particular attention to the shutters and make sure that as they're looking at stained cedar or similar KDAPT product listed, that the great attention gets given to that for the shutters. That's it.
I'm going to, rather than making that a part of the motion, I'm going to say, since we haven't voted on the motion, that is yet again incorporated into board comments.
Okay.
Satisfactory for you, Mr. Mayor?
You bet. You bet. Thank you.
And so that having been said, I understand it, you still agreed to second the motion without modification, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so we've had a successful proposed motion in a second. I will then proceed to call the roll. Mr. Scott, how do you vote on this motion?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Wheeler?
Yay in favor.
Mr. White?
Yay in favor.
And myself, yay in favor. Passes unanimously. Very good. I want to thank the applicant for their presentation tonight and bringing us up to speed on this particular item, and the staff's attention to detail with this, as well as the board's comments. Mrs. Parrish, are you prepared to look at agenda item number 3?
Yes, agenda item number 3 has been withdrawn by staff. And so we will move right on to agenda item number 4.
Excuse me, agenda item number 4.
No
I think we
problem.
noted that agenda item number 3 had in fact been withdrawn.
Still feels good. It's like checking off something. Agenda item number 4 is 250 Spring Street. That was a long drawing package, so we'll get caught up here. Okay. This is the request for conceptual approval for the demolition of an existing balcony, the balcony guardrails, addition of new windows, AC louvers, stucco, and paint. Okay, hold on. There we go. No, that's not it, is it?
Not quite. We just take a second and we'll get rectified, caught up on the agenda item. There we go.
All right. Okay, so the building is not rated. It was constructed in 1977. It's in the West Side neighborhood, but it is also in the Old City District. We're going to show you some context photos. This is the aerial photo, Brittlebank Parks on the left side of the screen. And then 250 Spring is right there where the little red flag is. This is also the Holiday Inn Express on Spring Street, obviously. This is a site photo taken from Spring Street with the hotel and then the front lower level amenities and stuff. This is another photo slightly to the west and one slightly from the east. And this is looking west on Spring Street and looking east on Spring Street. All right, the applicant, Mr. Rob Ponder, is here, and he will present the application.
Very good. The applicant has the floor.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
You can now.
All right, thank you. And I apologize if there's a lag in the presentation, but I'm actually doing this from Paris. So,
Well, wonderful. That may be our most remote presentation point, but enjoy the architecture there and everything else. And we can hear you just fine, Mr. Ponder. So proceed at your own
very
pace.
good. All right, I am the architect that has helped the owner of this hotel on a couple of their other hotel projects. This is, for the most part, an interior renovation of the building, including carpet and paint and wall covering and tile and new toilets and that kind of stuff. And I asked at the time they were doing this if we could go ahead and try to get rid of those 36-inch wide old air conditioners that we can't find higher than a SEER rating of 8 for. And so this kind of started with me. And if you could go, Tori, to page 15, I think it is. No, it's going to be 18. If you could go to page 18, it's the floor plans of the balconies. So the hotel was built in 1977 and has some of the original through-wall air conditioners. And I want to go to a much higher SEER rating, newer air conditioner. But the length of the rooms as she passes by there, you can see on the north side of that drawing, are very short. They don't have a long bed wall or TV wall. And if you'll go one more to the next sheet, if you could, please. I don't know if we can zoom in on that a little bit. So the building was built with balconies. They're only 2 foot deep, Juliet balconies, no furniture fits on them. And what the current sliding glass door, which are original also, are back in the same plane with the CMU walls that contained the existing air conditioners. And she was starting to move that along that same line. That was the existing face of the building. So the building has a very flat facade. It just has these little fin walls that stick out on the sides of the balcony and the handrails for the balcony. Well, to go to a better air conditioner that we can get a much higher SEER rating and quiet, we want to go to a vertical air conditioner instead of a horizontal air conditioner. And it's in the closet. You can see 2 units there in opposite side rooms that are out on what was the balcony itself. We're going to fill the balcony in slightly, take off the handrails and build those closets there. That we had to move the air conditioner in that white spot. You can see a white void in the black walls. That's where the current horizontal air conditioners are, because you can't fit the VTAC in that wall, in that block wall right there. So we put the VTACs there, and that caused us to take out the sliding glass doors and the handrails. So we're making a new stud wall that's out at the face of the old balcony, and we're going to go to punch windows, as you can see on the top half of that sheet. That would be a fixed aluminum window, and the VTAC louvers are now vertical instead of horizontal, but they're almost the exact same square inches of louver. They just went from a horizontal to the side of the sliding glass door to vertical next to the punch window that we have. And then if you'll go ahead and go to the next page after that one, now what will happen is where the punch windows are shown, they're 4 foot 4 inches wide, 6 foot 4 inches tall. I'm sorry, 3 foot 8 wide, 6 foot 4 tall. Now the face of that will actually be 2 feet in front of the other stucco that's on either side of it. So we'll start getting some shadows and some other things that will happen by making this air conditioning change that became a window and a stucco change out there on the face of the balcony. We did go ahead and leave the walls on the top floor set back 6 inches from the face of the balcony and kept the balcony rails up there to create an attic story. We felt like that added a little bit better top instead of trying to make the building consistent all the way down. The other, like cornices, the roof, the The height of the parapet are all existing. We're not doing anything to the roof. We're not doing anything to the other parts of the first floor that project out from the tower. We're focused mainly on filling in these balconies. The one exception to that is and I know signage is only a placeholder. We'll submit separately for that. But the existing roof, when it was a Howard Johnson, that part that stuck up goes about 5 feet to the left and to the right of where it does now. And it doesn't line up with anything on the facade below it. It just kind of sticks up at random places. So we're clipping the corners of that off to line that up with the 2 sets of balconies that are below that. And then the last thing that, as we were looking at it, now we're going to have some very old stucco, some new stucco. We're going to have some different materials. So we are proposing to paint the entire building, including the other stucco, filling cracks before we do that. And we want to use the same color blocking and some of the exact same colors that the West Rock group has used all around beside us. And I'm sorry, there's some background noise here. But, so we have submitted colors. If we can go ahead and I think go to the last page. Oh, go ahead, next elevation. That was the north elevation, and then this is the facing the water, facing the street. This is facing Spring Street. All we're doing on this side is paint. We're not actually replacing the windows on the end. Those are existing like that. And then again, we're doing nothing on those first floor ones. If you can go to the next sheet, please. Is the south side, and it's very similar to the north. It would not, the color blocking would be on the opposite side. We kept it up near that, near Spring Street. And then if you can go to the last of the 4 elevations, this is the one facing away from Spring Street, and it's nothing but paint. We're not changing windows or stucco or anything on that side of the building, nothing on the roof. The next page, and this is request was for existing building photograph, and then the next page you can see the colors that we've presented on the rendering for the next page. Nope, we skipped 1 page there. There it is. So we just colored on top of those elevations to be able to show that we tried to, and this got washed out a little bit, but we've picked up a lot of the colors that West Rock already has and that are already in that neighborhood. And we used some color blocking, which they used a lot of across their facade. So we felt like that would be more acceptable within that development that has grown up around this building. Next page is the one from our side of the street, the photograph. And then the next one's a rendering of it also. And we are leaving all the trees. There's no intent to cut any trees down or block, do anything. So those will remain, which from the street conceals far more than of the building than I realized till we started drawing this view. The porch, the canopy are all remaining. We will paint them the white color that's on the color board when we go to the, you can skip 2 or 3 pages. Those are the height of the existing parapets and roofs and stuff. If you'll go to the last page. All that's existing. We're not increasing the height or changing anything. And we've submitted originals of this, but we've given Sherman-Williams colors for the white is trying to get fairly bright white to match the existing storefront. The new windows will be white to match all the windows that are remaining on the ends of the building and the storefront that's remaining on the first floor. We're going with a white to try to get close to white as the storefront is. And then the 3 colors, Mysterious Mauve and the Red Scent and the Mocha in the locations that we've shown there. And one of the questions that we did have, which I think Lawrence has been working with on some other people, is we would like to use the Stowe Powerwall stucco system to help us address the energy code. When we replace the sliding glass door with new stud wall with stucco in that portion, we believe by the energy code will have to have the continuous insulation on it. And that Stowe Powerwall stucco system addresses the continuous insulation with the lack of the wrong kinds of fasteners. And I believe that y'all have been looking at that for compliance with the energy code on other ones. So we'd like to use that system. But again, all of this will be completely painted. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any public comment on this agenda item, Ms. Parrish?
There is none.
All right, I didn't remember there being any. Okay, city staff comments and recommendations.
All right, I have a few observations I'm going to run through. Number one, in conjunction with planned interior renovations, the owner is planning to replace the low efficiency PTAC units with higher efficiency VTAC systems and to replace the 44-year-old sliding glass doors with energy efficient impact rated windows. The proposed work should allow the building to operate more efficiently. Number two, the proposal also includes a new color blocking paint scheme. 3, the submittal package includes some items which are found to be confusing or lacking explanation. The project description describes the windows to be 3 foot 8 inches wide by 6 foot 4 inches tall and references the overall elevations. The windows on the provided elevations are of a nice vertical proportion with an interesting grid pattern. However, the horizontal mutton seems to be at eye level. For purposes of review, the 4 foot 4 inch wide by 5 foot tall window on sheet scheme A, that was the detail sheet, is considered to be an old proposal and is being ignored for this review. Number 4, additionally, while the project description indicates all exterior work to be confined to the balconies, the color renderings for the proposed exterior color blocking indicate the removal of trim elements and the addition of trim elements, most notably around the penthouse level where the exterior looks to be simplified, and at the south facade where the red stripe runs up and down the building and there is a physical manifestation of it above the parapet on the southwest corner. Number 5, while there is some conflicting information, staff believes that the project is simple and the overall direction of the proposal can be understood and therefore are comfortable making a recommendation other than deferral for a lack of clarity. And then staff comments. Number 1, overall, the height, scale, and mass are unchanged, and enclosing the balconies will create more positive variation in the building plane. That's supposed to say plane, sorry, than currently exist. Number 2, while the color blocking proposal for the exterior facades will freshen up the building, adjustments must occur and proposed changes must be clarified. Better articulate the exact locations for the new colors and what, if any, trim elements will be altered. Number 3, additionally, regarding the proposed color palette, adjust the colors to be more in harmony with each other. Staff is prepared to help with selections for harmonizing the hues and shades while understanding the existing context of newer buildings. Number 4, paint the exterior vents or grills for the new VTAC units to match the adjacent exterior wall color. Number 5, provide clarity in the follow-up submittal for all elements, including the proposed window placement and including the proposed window size and placement and color blocking details. Provide color renderings that depict the proposed pre-finished white metal windows. This may need to occur within an enlarged elevation detail. And number 6, recess the windows as much as practically possible. The staff recommendation is conceptual approval with board and staff comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Parrish. If Mr. Bonner, the applicant, may have a brief response if they choose to exercise. Hearing none, we will proceed to board discussion and a potential vote on this agenda item. What do my fellow board members have to say about this particular project?
I agree with staff's recommendation.
Okay. I do as well. And I would agree. It seems to be pretty straightforward with a little guidance from staff.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Sorry.
I would like to also ask that when the project comes back for preliminary, that the staff, Tori, does not allow it to come back unless these changes are made to the plan. And including the plan currently shows the windows being black on the drawings, but in words, they're white. I also had a question about the compatibility of the existing windows, which are going to remain, versus the new windows. So we have some metal windows that are remaining. Do they look like new windows, are they different? Um, and
On that one specifically, while we're on that item, let's see if we can get an answer, Mr. Matters. I don't think we have Mr. Ponder here, but if staff has any insight on that, it would be very helpful. And then we'll get to your next question, Mr. Matters.
So I do know that the color of the pre-finished new white metal windows is chosen to match the existing window frames, but that's a great question and one that we'll dig into.
Yeah.
Because it's more than color, I know.
Yeah, and then my last thing, Mr. Chairman, is just I know that there are paint schemes that identify different. I don't know if the right word is like chains or
Right.
groups, but I don't think that that's what we're after downtown. You know, so making sure that I'm supporting the move towards the harmonious. Well, number 3 in the staff.
It appears that we're making that both a board and a staff comment, and I join in it from a board member's perspective in terms of a branding color palette, not taking over our community standards.
Thank you for that.
I think there's 2 ways of saying the same thing.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Further board comments?
This is Carol Wheeler. Maybe you could go back to an elevation, one of the colored elevations. I think change towards energy sufficient, a more energy sufficient system is obviously positive. But I think there are a couple of issues with this proposal from my point of view. There's a proposal that to fill in those areas between the former fins to create more articulation, but I think it actually reduces the articulation and the shadows on the building. So previously it was a very simple building with floor to ceiling glazing and balconies, although it's Juliet balconies. And now you fill in between those fins and it's just a flat facade where you add the new windows, and the new VTEC grills are not hidden at all. Previously they were at least in the recessed portion. And now they're very prominent. I also don't understand why the top floor is being accentuated, although it's still in the same plane. The building does have a top, so I don't think it makes it very busy to accentuate the top floor with a different color and leaving the railing there while eliminating the railing somewhere else. So I think eliminating the balcony railings actually reduces the interest of the building, and the fact that the short elevations at the ends are not changed makes us really a very disjointed facade around the building, because they don't go together anymore, and it seems like the long elevations have one language and the short elevations have another language. So I'm not in favor of this renovation, and I think it can be done. I think the VTEC units can be integrated and still create deep shadow lines and deep recessed windows. But what's currently proposed is really a very flat window and a VTEC grill. And I think see if there's anything else. I think the color schemes, accentuating the verticals is good, but again, the 6th floor, the differentiation does not make sense to me. And if you go maybe to the short elevations, the end elevations, there's the band that staff comments are talking about. It seems very decorative, and the top of the building actually projects out. So this band, it will make it very complicated. So you're basically changing a very simple building to and make it more complicated and decorative.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Wheeler.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to know exactly what to do with buildings such as this one, because it's not terribly old, but it by no measure does it contribute to the architectural character of Charleston. And I think a lot of staff's comments are geared at simplifying the scope of the project, especially when it comes to this color blocking scheme. And I'm sure that can be resolved, but I don't know that these changes really make this building any worse, really. And that's damning with faint praise. I realize I'm not.
No, it's really not. My
Yeah.
phrase on addressing that, Mr. White, was going to be that one has limited options here.
Yeah.
And,
You got to work with what you got. And Mr. Ponder is not working with one of the best buildings in Charleston. So I don't know that my interest in this project and the scrutiny I place upon it is very limited for me. And I think staff comments have largely captured that.
Further board comments or a possible vote? A motion, rather.
Mr. Chairman, I want to commend everyone for their comments, but I especially appreciate Carol's diving into the details and making me think about something I hadn't thought about before. So I appreciate that.
Yep, I do as well. Looking to the detail on a project which is a building of an era and of a style which is not held in the highest regard in Charleston, and trying to make sure that the upfit that is done to it is appropriate, harmonious, and perhaps ameliorative of the building. Any motion from the board on this agenda item?
I can introduce something if y'all would like. I will make a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments and with board comments regarding colors and materials. Put it that way.
Okay. Just making sure I have this. Mr. White, your motion, as I have written it, is a motion for conceptual approval with staff comments and with board comments pertaining to colors and materials.
That's correct.
All right. Is there a second for that motion?
This is Leon Scott. I'll second it.
Scott has seconded the motion. I'll therefore proceed to call the roll. Mr. Metters, how do you vote on this motion?
Nay, not in favor.
Nay. Okay. Ms. Wheeler.
Nay, not in favor.
Mr. White.
Yay in favor.
Mr. Scott.
Yay in favor.
And myself, yay in favor. So that means that it passes by a margin of 3-2. Thank you to the applicant and to the board for their very thoughtful comments on this particular project. I believe that completes our agenda for this evening. Do we have anything for anything further on the agenda or anything for the good of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have one thing.
Okay.
I want to say thank you to everybody. This is meaningful to me, and I appreciate being a part of it.
Oh, absolutely. I think
Absolutely.
This board requires a lot of work, but is also very rewarding. And it's made more rewarding by the fact that we have such dedicated staff who care about the city on many levels and manifest it through their hard work. And we all press through and get it done together.
All right.
Thank you all for all the time,
Thank you.
all the time and attention that you give it. I'm so appreciative. I know we all are.
I'm sorry, Tori. What did you say? Were you saying something? I wasn't listening. Time and
You
attention.
didn't need to hear it. It wasn't about you.
Yeah, no,
Thank-
I know that. All right, y'all have a good evening.
Thank you to y'all.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you in
Yes,
2 weeks.
sir. Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
See you
Thank
next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.